How to direct attention behaviorally? These are the questions one can ask to study attention. How to direct attention and what are the consequences? Each question has its behavioral and neural aspects. We start with how attention is directed behaviorally.
In terms of eye movements, attention can be directed overtly by moving our gaze to where we select visual inputs, or covertly by selecting from the corner of our eyes. For example, in this image, overt selection may start by gaze position here on this person, and then maybe moving to that person, maybe then here, maybe moving to the chair, maybe then to the door or back to this person, etc. Here is the trajectory of one person's gaze movement, and here is another trajectory and a third one. Alternatively, let's try covert selection. Fix your gaze at this cross and try to see the letters to the right. Can you see the letters clearly? Especially the middle letter. You are now paying attention to the letters covertly. Now move your gaze to the letters. Now you are selecting overtly and you can see the letters clearly. The middle letter is T. This demonstrates that overt selection is much more effective, and that's why in natural behavior, gaze always follows where our attention is directed. In terms of the factors driving the selection, we have top-down and bottom-up factors. Top-down factor is also called task-driven, goal-directed, voluntary, non-reflexive, and endogenous. For example, your gaze may be now directed to these words because you have a goal. This goal is to listen to this lecture. Bottom-up selection is also called stimulus-driven, goal-independent, involuntary, reflexive, and exogenous. For example, even though your goal is to listen to this lecture, your gaze can be automatically captured by your dog if your dog suddenly jumps at you from your side. Your dog is the external stimulus that attracts your attention in the bottom-up manner.
Here is a study that compared the properties of top-down and bottom-up selection. Each trial first shows you this fixation image. It has 4 boxes and 1 central dot. Your gaze has to be fixed to this central dot. Later in time, an item appears in each of the 4 boxes. All of them are crosses except for 1 box, which contains a letter T. Your task is to report whether this letter T is right way up, as in this example, or upside down. This task is not easy because the items in the boxes are shown for only a very brief duration and then disappear. And also because you do not know ahead of time which box may contain this letter T. If you know ahead of time which box may contain this letter T, your attention can be more prepared to shift to that location. So, if you can give this information through this cueing stimulus, by flashing this box, here this means it's flashing, just before the test stimulus appears, this flash attracts your attention to this box. As your gaze is still fixated here to the central dot, your attention is shifted covertly to this flashed box so that you can see this letter T more clearly. If the letter T does not appear in the flashed box but in another box, then you cannot see the letter T as clearly since your attention has been misled. When the flash or the cue is at the same location as the target letter T, we call this trial a validly cued trial. Otherwise, it is an invalidly cued trial. We can also cue in another way. Instead of flash at a box, we can use an arrow at the fixation point, pointing to a box. This cueing by a flash is called bottom-up or exogenous cueing. It gives information directly at a candidate target location. This cueing by an arrow is called top-down or endogenous cueing. It gives information symbolically and indirectly, not at a candidate target location. Both types of cueing can be valid or invalid. With this study, one can compare the properties of bottom-up and top-down guidance of attention by the corresponding cueing methods. So we can find that bottom-up cueing is faster acting, even though its effect does not last as long, and it is stronger and harder to ignore. This may explain why our attention can be so easily distracted by irrelevant visual inputs. For example, if your task is to find a non-horizontal bar in this input, top-down attention should be directed to this target bar, but you cannot help noticing this non-target red bar because its unique color attracts your attention in a bottom-up manner, independent of your goal. This distraction can slow you down in reporting your target bar. This is an example when bottom-up attentional guidance interferes with your task. Bottom-up guidance of attention can also help in addition to a top-down guidance. In this study, your task is to report the identity of the target bar in this red box and ignore all the other bars, which are non-target bars. You report whether the target bar is white vertical, black horizontal, or otherwise like the non-target bars. This task is not easy. Firstly, because all the bars appear for only a very brief duration and then disappear. Secondly, because you have to keep your gaze fixated on this central cross, which is always there in the image. However, the location of this red box is known to you ahead of time. It is always at the same location in all trials. This knowledge is a top-down factor to guide your attention ahead of time. There are two ways to do this experiment. In the first way, the red box is always present on the display screen throughout the whole experimental session. So you not only know its location ahead of time, this location is marked constantly. In the second way, this red box is flashed on 50 to 150 milliseconds before all the bars appear, and this sudden onset of the red box attracts your attention in a bottom-up manner so that this task becomes easier in this condition 2 compared to condition 1. Even though your attention is already guided by the top-down factor, the bottom-up factor still helps you on top of it. We can also distinguish whether attention is space-based, object-based, or feature-based. In space-based attention, attention is directed to a coordinate location on the image, for example, directed to the location of this red star. In object-based attention, all locations in the same object can benefit from directing attention to any location on the object. For example, here we have two bars as two objects. If you direct your attention to this cross, your attention spreads throughout this bar horizontally so that your visual performance at this location is better than this location, even though these two locations are equidistant from this cross. Similarly, if your attention is directed to this cross, this location down below benefits more than this location to the right. In feature-based attention, your attention can be guided by a top-down feature. For example, if you're looking for a red cup, you are selecting by the red feature. So all red-colored inputs are preferentially processed. However, bottom-up guidance operates only through space-based attention.